What's going on, everybody? We back again, another episode of Coffee Talks where I curate some of my favorite coffee and some of my favorite leadership talks from some of my favorite people. Man, I'm excited about today. We are roasting up my favorite roaster, Onyx Coffee Lab. They're actually based out of Bentonville, Rogers, Arkansas, that whole area, about not quite 2 hours from me. I've been drinking Onyx since I got into craft coffee. 10 years of this. They're still my favorite. I've had some good coffees other places. Every time I get an Onyx coffee, it is never a letdown. It is always great. And this one is a special one because not only am I drinking my favorite coffee, but I'm actually drinking from one of my favorite artists. Andy Mineo did a collab with them and came up with something called Happy Sips because he's actually got a song or album coming out called Happy Thoughts. And so they partnered together to come up with a coffee called Happy Sips. And this is actually a Columbian and Ethiopia. It's a combined roast. It's awesome. It is such a good coffee. The moment you grind it, you get this molasses smell, just kind of really penetrates. But the moment you hit it with water, you get these deep smells of like a tea, like a darker tea, like a lot of herbal teas there. It is really great. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it's one of those coffees you could be a daily driver. It's just everything about it. You just sit back, you relax, you really enjoy this coffee. So Onyx, kudos. Andy, kudos. Get you some Happy Sips. The artwork's great. I love the boxes Onyx comes in. All right, today we're gonna talk about some more Dale Carnegie, how to influence people and win friends. I'm telling you right now, it has been a classic for decades for a reason, because it really does make a difference. And he makes a statement in this one that I'm gonna talk about that I think most people don't get. He talks about the power of remembering someone's name. Studies I've done in the past, not even what Dale even puts out in this book, shows that the most attractive thing we hear is the sound of our own name. That there is something when somebody calls you by name that psychologically, deep down in the core of who you are, it just brings this affirmation. It just is so attractional. We love to hear the sound of our own name, and nothing else makes us feel more alive than when someone that we look up to, that's influential, actually knows your name. When somebody knows your name that you think they shouldn't know your name, all of a sudden it causes honor in your life. It adds your value level starts to rise. It causes you to have this affirmation inside. It's powerful. But the same is true when someone doesn't remember your name. When someone doesn't remember your name, you know what you do subconsciously? Maybe you do this consciously. You think, I'm not really that important to them. Or they're on another level than I am. You know what? They don't really see me the way I see them. And you know what that causes? Insecurity. It doesn't cause honor. And it causes a disconnection between you and that person. And I guarantee you've said this, and most people you're going to meet says this. Well, I'm not good at remembering names. How many people use that as the number one cop out in the world, right? Well, I'm not good at remembering names. Guess what? If the majority of the world was not good at remembering names, if you learn to be good at remembering names, you're better than 99% of the world, and you can influence and connect with people where most people can't. There is this power in remembering names. Now, Dale uses an example. He talks about Andrew Carnegie. And he says Andrew was amazing. He has this knack for understanding the power of someone's name. He actually uses two stories as an example. One story is when Andrew is trying to strike a deal with the Pennsylvania Railroad Company to sell them steel rails. And so the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company was J. Edgar Thompson. And so what did Andrew do? When he went to Pittsburgh to build a steel mill, you know what he called that steel mill? Edgar Thompson Steel Works. What do you think the president of Pennsylvania Railroad Company, where do you think he's going to buy steel from? Is he going to go and buy steel from another company? Or is he going to go buy steel from the steel works named after him? It's a no-brainer, right? Andrew understood that. Years later, Andrew was actually competing with a competitor named George Pullman. And they were actually both in the sleeper car railroad business. So they would build the sleeper cars for the railroad company. And they were selling their sleeper cars to all the different railroad companies. And they're at this time when they're competing so heavily that they're slashing prices and undercutting each other. to the point where there was no profit in it for them because they just wanted to win the business and the bids. And finally, Andrew realized this principle of names, and he actually sat down with George. He goes, you know what, George? We're acting like a couple fools. And George looks at him like, what are you talking about? He goes, we're competing so much against each other. There's no money in it for us. We're not making any money. He goes, why are we competing? We should merge together and create our own company together. And George looks at him and goes, well, what would we call the company? And Andrew, being so keen and cunning, said it like this. He goes, well, we would call it the Pullman Palace Car Company, of course. And immediately George Pullman's face lit up and said, let's go have a little deeper conversation. And there a new company was formed. They both ended up profitable because Andrew knew the power of hearing your name. There's something beautiful about it. I want to read a quote from Bitten Love when he says it like this: the bigger the corporation gets, the colder it becomes. One way to warm it up is to remember people's names. The executive who tells me he can't remember names is at the same time telling me he can't remember a significant part of his business, and he is operating on quicksand. The moment you get too big for your own britches, you can't remember the people inside your organization, is the moment you start sinking in your organization. We got to warm it up. We got to remember people's names. The problem is most people that use the excuse, well, I'm not good at names. You know what they're not good at? It's not names they're not good at. They're not good at putting time and energy into learning people's names. Not that they're not good at names. They just don't actually want to put the time and the energy into repeating the name, fixing their mind on that name, and concentrating enough to learn that name. So Dale gives us a couple tips that I want to kind of get you out of here with, because here's what I bet you. I'll bet you money. Here's what you've done. How many times you've had a conversation with someone, they tell you their name, and within 30 seconds you already forgot it? How many times you can't even get out of a 5-minute conversation to remember someone's name? We got to learn the art. You got to be conscious of it when the moment by remembering names. So here's what you do. Number one, if you didn't hear their name clearly, ask them to repeat it. Hey, what was your name again? I didn't quite hear that, right? Well, how did you pronounce that again? Right? Ask them to repeat it. What are you doing? You're getting a second time hearing it. If it is a unique name, ask them to spell it for you, right? So if it's a unique name that you never heard before, be like, well, how do you spell that? Guess what's happening? Now you're reinforcing it. Now here's what the key is. What you need to do, you need to get this. Once you've got their name, you need to repeat their name multiple times in the conversation. Fred. Oh man, do you like working there, Fred? Man, I love your wife, Fred. Man, Fred, you know so-and-so over there? See what you're doing? You're multiple times making a conscious effort to speak that name. What are you doing? You're trying to put it into your brain. Now, as you're having this conversation with them and you're speaking that name multiple times, their name is now something that now becomes something remembered. What you need to do is fix that name on something about them. Whether that's something about their physical appearance, whether that's something about their career, whether that's a unique fact you learned about them, right? Fred sells Frisbees in San Francisco, okay? Whatever you got to do, what you're doing now is now putting yourself into a place where you remember Fred. And when you get away from Fred, write his name down, put it in your phone, put a detail about that in your phone, something about that person in your phone, or write it physically down. Because what you're doing is you're going to sit and look at that, concentrate it, and get it put into your mind. I'm telling you right now, if you can remember names, 99% of the world is not on the same level as you. You're going to have more influence. You're going to build deeper, meaningful friendships and have healthy relationships. All right, guys, till next time, drink your coffee, grow in your leadership. Can't wait to see you back for another Coffee Talks.